Hello and welcome to lesson two as we are moving slowly through the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount. And hope you're having a great week and things are going well for you. Lesson title is Isolation or Impact. I really like this lesson. I like the title because it talks about us as believers and us as a church. Do we live in isolation or do we kind of get out in the world and make an impact? And the Lord's will is for us to make an impact. That's really the point of the lesson today. We're not supposed to sit in the pew and soak. Just be a sponge and just take it all in and do nothing with it. What good is that? But we're to go and be salt and light. So we're in Matthew chapter 5, 13 through 16. I'm going to reiterate again that according to Matthew, he was not even a disciple yet. He probably was one sitting in the crowd listening to the Sermon on the Mount as Jesus taught it. Revolutionary to them, to the people who listened. And so, you know, here's Jesus, the carpenter's son from this little podunk town of Nazareth. And he is teaching and preaching, and he shows such wisdom and insight and depth. And it's just kind of blowing their minds that what they're hearing him say. And they knew that he was something special. Uh, what's interesting is at the beginning of his 3.5 year ministry, man, everybody followed him. You couldn't get close to him. The crowds were huge. Later, his words became harder for them to take, and he required more of them. And the crowd thinned out a little bit. That's tend to how it gets with hard teaching and preaching and things like that. We're in Matthew chapter 5, 13 through 16. The main idea is Jesus produces a spirit within his followers that is as distinctive as salt is to a diet and light is to darkness. So we're going to talk about being salt and light in this crazy world today. Not much by introduction today, but just the fact that he's preaching to poor people. There was no middle class in Jesus' day. Either you were very poor and you're literally working to survive. We talk about working paycheck to paycheck. They worked meal to meal. And the whole thing about being satisfied, they didn't know what it meant to be satisfied. They'd never been there, done that. Um, and so they're very poor and they felt helpless. And here Jesus is telling them, no, 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 no. You can make a difference right where you're at, just the way you are. Uh, did not mean that he was going to all of a sudden give them extravagant wealth or pull them out of their poor condition, but it did mean they could make a difference. And that speaks to all of us. And that's kind of the point of the lesson is God may not change your circumstances, but he can change your attitude as you go through it, and you can make a difference. So go do it. That's kind of the point. Go do it. Don't sit around and think about it. Do it right where you're at today. So I love that. And I think a lot came on for a lot of people, and it was life changing to hear this sermon. You ever had a sermon where it really changed your life? I can remember a few that really made me think about my life and where we go from here. I divided this up, verse 13, where he talks about you're the salt of the earth, and it makes things that are bland a little bit more palatable. We all like salt, don't we? I'm more of a pepper person than a salt. Me and my old age and blood pressure. Then verse 14 through 16, you're the light of the world. Let's read the first verse together. Here we go. Verse 13, you are the salt of the earth. But if the salt has become tasteless, how can it be made salty again? It's no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot by men. You're a little bit of seasoning in this old bland world to spice things up a little bit, make it a little bit more palatable as far as life. And, he talks about it, you're the salt, you're it. No one else, you. The Spirit working in you. He kind of talks about this thing about if salt has become tasteless. I've thought a lot about this, did a little bit of research. There's a big discussion out there about can salt become tasteless. And, the way salt is categorized as far as a chemical is NaCl, sodium chloride, salt. And salt is a very stable substance. Salt can keep in your cabinet for years. And there were a lot of different uses for it. It was a preservative. They used it for medicine. Um, you know, Even today, you get a cold sore in your mouth, you could go rinse your mouth out with salty water and it will help. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. But the chemical bond in salt is very tight. Sodium and chlorine are happy to become one and share one electron. And so it clings together. And it is not an easy thing for it to lose its taste. The only way to change it is for it to be diluted. And I was reading yesterday, thinking, well, yeah, there's a lot can make us diluted in there. The world can, our attitude can, our lack of action can, the way we treat people can. There's a lot of things that can dilute us as believers so that we're tasteless. We're not having the impact that the Lord would want us. So, in their day, I guess if you had salt, you could dilute it with water, and then it would become tasteless eventually. And then what do you do with it? It's useless after that. There's really no good quality left in it once it's diluted, and you just throw it out in the street. And that's kind of the point. I think spiritually speaking, it just means we've got to be careful about the things we introduce in our life and into our heart and into our mind. Make sure it's godly, make sure it's positive. You're not going to be the salt of the earth if you have a rotten attitude and you're not doing the right things with your life. So let's be careful to continue to be the salt of the world and salt of the earth. Let's read the second passage here. You are a light. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Now, he's talking about when you are out in the countryside and it's dark and there's a city, you can see the city because of the light in the city. Nor does anyone light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. We're to be like that light and illuminate things and help. It's help, really, is what he's saying. Let your light shine before men in such a way that they may see your good works. These allergies are terrible these days. Let your light shine before men in such a way that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. I just had to think about the fact that Jesus, growing up as a little boy, grew up in Nazareth. Nazareth was a little bitty village with about 200 to 400 people in it when Jesus was a boy. But 4 miles north was a Greco-Roman city that was huge. It was called Sepphoris, Sepphoris. Google it. There's still ruins of the old ancient city of Sepphoris today. It's a Greco-Roman city. It had colonnaded streets with columns leading into the city, and they had an outdoor amphitheater, that would house several thousand people. It was pretty big. Um, and so I'm sure that when Jesus was a little boy and he was out at night, he could see the lights, the city lights of Sepphoris. 4 miles. They say it's 6.5 kilometers north of Nazareth. And one day I'd love to go to Israel and and see that ancient city. Can't go right now; you might get bombed or shot at. But one day we shall see. So he's saying that you can't hide it. A city on a hill with light at night is going to be seen. And your faith is not something that should be hidden. The result of your faith. Now, I don't know that the right tactic is to be in everybody's face about things. I think you earn the right to speak to people about your faith and that they trust you and they love you as a person. Um, but you can't hide it. And so the point of the lesson is to go and be the salt and the light that the Lord created you to be. Make life better. um, show the true love of Jesus in your heart and in your life. Well, let me share with you a couple of truths from the lesson. Famous lesson this week, famous words. Well, we've all heard that we need to be salt and light. I have heard it 1,000 times. The first truth is our faith may not change every negative situation people find themselves in, but it can make it more bearable. And that's kind of the point. God's not going to fix every problem, but I think you pray and ask Him to. But sometimes He says yes, sometimes He says no, and sometimes He says wait. But you can be a rock, you can be salt and light in the midst of whatever circumstance you find yourself in and your friends find themselves in. So make life more bearable. Don't make it worse. Second truth is it's easier for our friends to come to Christ when they've had faithful witnesses unto the saving power of Jesus. And that's really what this lesson is about. As it goes with you, go and be the salt and light of the world. Now, that's a choice. Okay, it's another one of those things where the Spirit gives you the tools, but you have to decide to use them. So it's a lot easier for people to come to the Lord when they've had people around them encouraging them in a positive way and giving them a positive example of a Christ-like attitude. Third truth is that believers to go out into the world and make a difference, not hide within the walls of the church building. I want to ask you, who are you witnessing to today, just by your life? Do you have any non-Christian friends? If how are we ever going to reach the world if we're never with them? That doesn't mean you got to go hang out at the bar or smoke pot or something, but it does mean that you've got to at least know them. They at least need to know who you are. You got to spend a little bit of time with them, and we need to find ways to do that. And I think there's an art to that. When my children were small, the way I met people was going to school to pick them up, going to their baseball games. Now that I have an empty nest, I'm having to find other ways to meet people, and I'm meeting them. It's not easy. I have to get out of my comfort zone. I got to get out of this office. Got to get out of this church. But I'm doing that. Well, let me pray with you. Lord, we love you. We love each other. I pray you bless us like only you can. Continue to make us salt and light in this world. We trust you with all things. In your name I pray. Amen. Y'all have a great week. Take care.